What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Broadened Horizon. I'm your host, Drake Riggs, bringing you episode 2, which features yet another stacked lineup of awesome guests. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the show, you guys. Whether you're here for the very first time or returning after episode 1, both mean a lot. All of the feedback on episode 1 was greatly appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say it enough. And for episode 2, we'll be kicking things off in a big way with the boss man himself, the founder of RIZIN, Mr. Nobuyuki Sakakibara. Then from him, we will go to the shootbox queen herself, Rena Kubota. And closing out the show is the lightweight tandem of Takasuke Kume and the always entertaining Yusuke Yachi. All three of those fighters will be in action at RIZIN 24, which is on September 27th. Thank you to all of them for joining us. It was an awesome lineup, and thank you to those in the community who asked questions, which we will answer at the end of the show. If you have any going forward, feel free to drop them wherever. Let me know. And we'll try to get to them in the future, of course. And of course, once again, thank you to all of you for checking the show out in general. Whether you're watching on mymmanews.com or YouTube, you could even be listening on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, as well as mymmanews.com's SoundCloud. Whatever it may be, thank you. And let's get on with episode 2, everybody. Enjoy. And joining us first, it is the president and founder of RIZIN Fighting Federation, Mr. Nobuyuki Sakakibara. Okay, thanks so much for joining me, Nobuyuki. It means a lot, man. I know you're very busy, but, really excited, to have RIZIN back and everything. Obviously, RIZIN 24 is coming up here, but got to know about the big return with the doubleheader, RIZIN 22 and 23. Just, what was it like how were the two events in your opinion? And was it difficult, to set things back up for returning?
due to this coronavirus pandemic, we had to cancel 3 events, April, May, and July, due to the government's restrictions. So at that point, we were sitting there without not being able to generate any income. And, we were just sitting there losing money. So the August events were originally not planned. And, but we just couldn't be sitting on our butt and not making things happen. So we needed to create something. We needed to restart the flow, and we needed to come up with a new way to generate revenue. So, that August event was not a planned event at the beginning of the year. And we kind of launched it in a very premature way, but I am glad we did.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in terms of results, from how the show went, as a viewer, I thought it was a fantastic. Both shows were pretty great. Did they meet your expectations in terms of, how the fights played out? And then as for how procedures went in just setting up the event too?
So first off, this event didn't meet my expectations in a way. It made me realize how the reality of the people, the society. Not quite sure how the media treats this pandemic, in the world, but as far as in Japan, every news outlet starts with the coronavirus and it ends with the coronavirus. They're scaring the crap out of people. So the reality was, we were kind of disappointed that we wouldn't be able to sell out both days. I do believe that the Japanese are still not being able to fear properly, to deal with the coronavirus in a proper way. The society is just scared. And Japan is a culture where you kind of have to look at what other people are doing. You can't really stand out, so you have to go with the society. So that part was definitely was the negative aspect of this 2 days. It was kind of disappointing that we weren't able to sell out both days. But for the people who showed up, and the atmosphere, the enthusiasm for these people, it was amazing. The atmosphere that we created inside the venue, people who showed up, they were definitely passionate, and they enjoyed the event very well. And also the fighters, you can just tell that they were happy to be there. and they showed that they wanted to fight. They came here to fight, and you can see that they were very hungry for the fight. You can see their motive. We can see that they were highly motivated, and it showed up in their performances. So I'm very happy about the fight itself, the fights itself.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in terms of, the approach for Ryzen 24, are you going to change much about, I guess you've had a little bit more time here for, preparation, but is the approach going to be kind of the same for this one as it was for the last two?
少し今の日本の局面でいうとコロナが落ち着いてきてることもあって、
So as far as Ryzen 24 goes, the whole situation of the coronavirus is it's kind of mellowed down a little bit. Now, back in August, the amount of the positive tests and people getting the virus, it was rising. There was a little peak to it, but we do feel that it's kind of plateaued and people are getting used to going out more often. So I do believe that the people showing up, that would be different. As a matter of fact, all the tickets are already sold out. The amount of tickets that we put out there, they're already sold out. So, we know for a fact that people are wanting to attend these events, and we know that we will have a big crowd at the Saitama Super Arena. So, now it all comes down to how the fighters are going to perform. Our September events at the Saitama Super Arena are usually big events. It's one of our bigger events. And for this one, we've got Fuji Television airing our event on terrestrial television from 8 to 10. So, overall, we're putting more emphasis on this event. Tickets are doing well. We're going to make sure to meet their expectations with productions. So we're working on putting everything into this event to make it bigger than the August events.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's good to hear. Definitely. It's very exciting. And, just for as specific performances from, the doubleheader again, Ryzen 22 and 23, crowned a new bantamweight champion. Kai Asakura, guy's obviously a rising star, one of the best bantamweights in the world. I'm just curious, were you surprised to see how well he did versus Hiramasa?
なんていうのかな。
The first thing that came to mind is that I really hope that I would be able to book him a rematch against Manel Kape. His performance that night, if he came in with that mentality and with that performance on New Year's Eve last year, it probably would have been a totally different fight and may have been a different outcome. So, it was that great of a performance mentally, physically, like everything he showed out there that night, it was flawless.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal performance, definitely showed that's why he's the champion, of course. We saw it against Horiguchi as well. And, another big winner from that pair of events was Ayaka Hamasaki. I'm just curious, is the idea to, make that fourth ham fight next? And, what's the status of Sohei right now? Because, of course, with the travel bans, I saw something about Japan is kind of loosening travel restrictions. Maybe that's just something I might have seen, but you tell me.
はい、まあ、本当に日本は今も
So yeah, currently, as you may know, Japan's travel bans are very strict, and right now we're not the country is not allowing anybody outside of the country inside our country, but if the government wants to hold the Tokyo Olympics next year, they got to start moving now, and we have been approaching them. We have been lobbying. For them to make exceptions to the sports athletes, at least. Tourism may be coming later, but at least for people with work, jobs, and athletes who need to work, we're working on loosening up a little bit with the government. So I'm sure the government will make a move sometime soon, and hopefully, we can get things done by New Year's Eve. This September event, it's going to be hard, but we're working on getting these international fighters into Japan for New Year's Eve event. So that case, Ham will definitely be coming and fighting on New Year's Eve. And as far as the opponent, obviously Hamasaki is definitely one of the options. that she may be facing. But Kana Asakura, she also fought in August. She put in a fantastic performance. It's probably going to be one out of the two. So we're not quite sure who's going to get that yet, but it all comes down to how the government treats this situation. So we can't really say yet. And hopefully things go well. The country opens up. Fighters can come in. Hopefully, next year, Hamasaki's Ham, they're definitely going to be the key aspects, the key fighters for the super atomweight division in RIZIN. So maybe next year we can do something based around them and do another Grand Prix. But these fighters will definitely be the core of women's MMA of what we do today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Kana did a very good job in that fight. Of course, a very quick victory, a flawless performance, as they would say. And obviously, this depends on what happens with the coronavirus and everything as well, too. But one of my favorite things in MMA last year was, the collaboration that you guys had with Bellator. So I'm just curious, is that something you would hope to do and work with them again going forward in the future when that's possible?
そうですね。スコットとも話を久しくね。
So yeah, it's been a while since I've actually able to sit down and speak face to face with Scott. But once the world gets back to normal, it's definitely something that we would like to start again. The whole concept of the top fighters fighting top fighters is something that everybody wants to see. And these types of fights and these types of challenges, I do believe that is one of the aspects that takes our sport to the next level. So, assuming everything goes well, everything in 2021, we would definitely like to have more conversations and continue to work together on taking the sport to the next level. And hopefully many other promotions will follow.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a really cool, unique thing to see, especially in this day and age where it seems like kind of people are out for themselves, but it's always nice to work together, right? So that's a great thing. And you guys have been great at creating stars. Like I was saying, Kai Asakura, obviously this guy's a star. And, you mentioned Manel Cape. There's, Roberto de Souza, who was also a big winner from that doubleheader. Just curious, who do you think is somebody who could be a next big star for RIZIN who maybe isn't quite there yet, but you see that this is somebody who's about to break out?
そういう意味では、
So I'm not gonna list any specific names here because there are just so many unpolished stones in the market right now. Not only in Japan, but outside of Japan. Like look what we did with Edith Prohaska, Manel Cape. We didn't quite polish Jorginho pose and strike, but look where he is right now. The ability, there's still so many unpolished stones out there waiting to be polished. So what we want to do is that we want to find those fighters who are willing to work with the promotion, just sit down and be transparent on what they want to do, how they want to present themselves as a professional fighter, and work together. So it's a matter of who can sit down with us and how we can send them out. So it's like I said, I'm not gonna list any names, but just sit there and enjoy what we have next. Yeah, so this is kind of off topic, but I really want you to focus on Kanako Murata, who will be making her UFC debut on November 14th. But she's one of the fighters that we scouted out. She was an elite collegiate wrestler, an Olympian wrestling level fighter, a wrestler. But we scouted her, and it's been about 4.5 years now. But she's dedicated herself into MMA. She worked with us to build experience and exposure, and now she's finally gonna get her UFC debut. So we really like to focus on her, and definitely she's one of the fighters that we polished and we brought up. So keep an eye out.
Oh yeah, yes. That's funny you mentioned that. I'm so happy you mentioned that because if anybody who knows me, Kanako is literally one of my favorite fighters right now. So yes, I've been paying attention. Don't worry.
彼女は多分ベルト巻きますよ、UFC の。
Yeah, she'll probably have the UFC belt around her waist one day. She's got that much potential.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you think that's a good thing too for you guys, right? Because then it shows like, yes, look at the stars that we've been able to produce and they're legit. It's kind of, I compare it to, that Strike Force effect where before the Strike Force guys went to the UFC, people maybe didn't treat them as, that they were as good as they were, but then they went all to become champions and it showed that they were legit guys, right?
はい、思います。まあ本当に僕らは
Yeah, so just like Bellator, we don't really look at UFC as a competitor. We're all working together to gain citizenship in the sports industry. Especially in Japan, we need the sport to be more recognized and accepted to the mass. So the UFC, there has not been a single Japanese fighter who's had the UFC belt yet. So for her getting that title would mean a lot for the industry over here in Japan. So just with that, we really want to work with everybody to make our sport more accepted by everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and she's definitely capable of it, like you were saying. She's shown all the talent so far, and I think we'll just continue to show it. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me, Nobuyuki. I got one last thing for you here because there was some news before. Obviously, Ryzen 24 gets released tomorrow, I believe, if my time is right. But you guys had a new rule. I gotta ask about the new shoe rule. Just like what's kind of the story behind that? Why did it come into place? And just tell me a little bit more about it.
詳しくはね、やっぱり常に
My take on the rules, any kind of rules. This is my take on rules. Rules should be made. There should be minor rule changes every time in order to evolve as a sport. If one thing doesn't work out, let's tweak it out a little bit. Let's try this. Let's try that. So I do think that minor changes should be made all the time. And if it's the elbows, shoes, the soccer ball kicks, if there's a flaw, if someone feels like there's a flaw, there should be changes. At least they should be tried. So the rules on the shoes, the changes on the shoes is one of those things that we're just going to try out. We'll see what happens. And in terms of the reasoning behind it and all that technical stuff, I do recommend that you talk to the officials. But I don't really have an opinion on the details and the reasoning behind it. But I do agree that minimum changes should be made on a regular basis to evolve anything. Yeah, so just let you know here, the gloves that are going to be used for Tenshin versus Koji fight, those are going to be new resin gloves. And we have developed new boxing gloves based off of fighters' opinions. And we've been consolidating all these opinions from each fighter. So this will be the first time that we will be using a new type of boxing glove for the Tenshin versus Koji fight. Hopefully we can make adjustments to our open finger gloves as well. But incorporating the ideas and voices of fighters and competitors is something that will probably make the rules and the gear much better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's very exciting. Look forward to seeing that. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, yeah, it's always good to, try out new things, of course. Whether they work or not, you can always go back, right? But anyways, I think that's all I got for you, Nobuyuki. Thank you so much, man, for, taking the time to join me. Really an honor to get to talk to you, a veteran of MMA, right? So a pioneer, sort of. So thank you so much. It means a lot to get to talk to you. I look forward to the next event, seeing the lineup once it's announced and everything, and I'll be watching. So, thank you so much. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have the one and only Rena. All right. Thanks so much for joining me, Rena. Great to finally get to talk to you. Thanks for being on the show. All that. Really excited for the big fight. And I mean, you had 4 fights last year. So I got to know, has it been torture waiting to fight, again for so long now?
うーん、そうですね。まあ、試合がやりたい。
So yeah, I mean, it was very frustrating to know that I wasn't able to fight. But when you look around the world, it's a global thing. Everybody's dealing with the same thing right now. So I had to kind of talk myself into, this is what everybody's going through. Everyone's frustrated. So I can't just be the one, frustrated of not being able to fight. But my job is to fight. I make a living because because I fight. So in terms of not being able to work was frustrating in that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that impacted a lot of people, of course. But I know you were very busy with some Animal Crossing. So how's your island coming along?
そうですね。まあ、2匹飼ってたの
So yeah,
が、
I originally had
子供が生まれて、
two
4匹生
dogs,
まれて、2匹は
but
友達の
they had
友
babies.
達、まあ、4
They had
匹、
4 babies,
お
pups,
家にいて、
and I gave away
2
2,
もすごく楽しく、
but now I'm here with
頑
four
張れ、
four
一
dogs.
人で練習
So during the
頑張れて
quarantine, they definitely kept me company, and they definitely kept me sane, and I was able to hang in there by myself.
OK, 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 OK.
Yeah, for sure. Always good to have the little puppy dogs. You're always posting great pictures of them. Awesome to see. Really cute, of course. So as for fighting, though, of course, like I said, fought 4 times last year. Very active. Got the fight coming up next week. Curious, how many times would you like to, ideally fight before this year ends?
そうですね。まあ、今年に関してはもうこれ、
So for this year,
まあ
uh,
大晦日にも
maybe
あるかな
this
あるかな
upcoming
っていう
fight may be my only one,
来年は
or if things go right, I might be able to fight on New Year's Eve again, so that'll be twice. But in speaking of next year, in a perfect world, I would always want to fight 2 or 3 fights a year. So yeah, that would be ideal for me.
Of course. Always good to stay active if possible. And, taking on Emi Tomomatsu here in the next fight, probably your most experienced opponent, right? At least in MMA. So just curious, how much do you know about her? What do you expect out of this fight? And, how exciting is it for you to take on somebody as experienced as she is?
まあそうですね。今まで戦ってきた
So Tomimatsu is definitely
キャリアがすごく長くて
one of the fighters that has the most experience. Like she's got a handful of fights or a lot of fights under her weight belt, and she will be definitely be the most experienced fight that I've ever faced.
ただ、本当
But
に粘り強さ
but when you look at her closely, she doesn't have anything specifically dangerous, particularly dangerous. So I don't think
いいところじゃないですけど、まあ私からしたら
that
厄介なとこ
the
ろがある
fight
の
would
か
be
なって
too hard for me.
私は
Her
全体
best
的
part
に
of her
自信がある
fight is that she's very tough and gritty, and she's very hard to finish.
そうです
So my plan is to, I'm very confident in my striking. My plan is to not play her game, and I just want to enforce my plan with where I'm really good at and finish her in the early rounds.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, your last 4 fights have been at 112 pounds. This one at 116. So I'm curious, are you trying to stick closer to the strawweight division now, or do you hope to, go back to super atomweight at some point? I saw you say in an interview that you are interested in fighting, the current champion, Sohee. So just curious where you're at with when it comes to the divisions.
そうですね。前回は 50.8 かなんかの
Yeah, so for this fight, obviously it was a quite short notice fight. So I didn't really want to focus all my fight camp in cutting weight. So we negotiated and agreed to 53 kilos, which will be somewhere that, I'll be comfortably be able to come down to, and also focus on my fight camp as well. And if the opportunity comes where I will be able to face Sohee Ham, I definitely could cut down to 49 kilos, which is super atomweight division. But I'll see how my movement is at this weight in my upcoming fight, and then I'll decide if I'm going to stick with strawweight division or if I can go down and fight at super atomweight constantly. So it all depends on this upcoming fight.
Of course, of course. And, I'm curious, does it make you kind of want to fight Ham like even more now, just because I know you beat her in shoot boxing and now she's the champion? Does that give you like, oh man, I've beat her, I can go and do it again?
まあ、まあちょっと年月が経ってるっていうのと、やっぱり
Yeah, last time I fought Ham was, it was a long time ago. And obviously, shoot boxing is a different sport than MMA. So you can't really put those two together. And, it's not, and obviously Ham is the current RIZIN champion. So for me, that's where the motivation is, just facing the champion and being able to beat her in her rules. And more importantly, she's a very good striker and I'm a striker, and I think that if we fought, I think we'll be able to put on one of the best female fights that anybody could possibly imagine. So that itself is very interesting, and I would be very interesting to see to fight that fight myself. So that fight in MMA, it would definitely be a crowd pleaser, and I'd like to make that fight happen.
Yeah, you won't find me arguing with that. It would be an awesome fight. Speaking of awesome fights, her last fight, with Ayaka Hamasaki, their trilogy. I know you're close with Ayaka, so I was curious of your thoughts on that fight. What did you think of it? Seeing somebody like Ayaka go in there, put on such a great show, still at her age as she's getting older, she's still great, for what she's doing. Did you think that the decision was right? What did you think of that fight, the trilogy between Hamasaki and Ham?
そうですね。まだ試合会場にいるときは、その結
So
果
when I
に
saw the
すごく
fight, at the
びっく
venue,
りしたというか、私は
I was actually surprised with the decision. I honestly thought that Hamasaki won that fight. But after the
いろんな人の
after the fight, listening to many people's opinions and see how they look at fights or how they saw the fight, a lot of people saw it the other way. So just listening to other people's opinions and how their take on the fight, it kind of educated me into accepting that decision. But moreover, that loss made Hamasaki more motivated on the rematch, and he's been training hard to fight Ham again. So in hindsight, I think that was a good decision to be made for RIZIN and for Hamasaki, because it just made things so much more interesting. And that's how I feel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, awesome fight, like I said, could have gone either way. I think that's fair to say. And, not to get too far ahead in the future or anything, but let's say that Hamasaki and Ham, they have a fourth fight, right? And Hamasaki ends up reclaiming her title and, you keep winning and everything. Is there any possibility that you would be open to, fighting Hamasaki, who you're close with, for the title, or is, too close of a relationship there for that to even be a possibility?
そうですね。まだ先なので、
So yeah, it's something that is probably, we're talking about something way ahead, right? So I used to not even think of fighting Hamasaki is, but slowly, if it's a special occasion, or if it's like a must situation, like if we met in the same bracket of a tournament, or my retirement fight, if it was a special occasion, if it made sense, I think I wouldn't be too hesitant on fighting her. But yeah, up until like recently, I really didn't have an idea. I wasn't even thinking about the possibility of fighting Ayaka. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely. More of a fantasy situation. Was just curious, because it's always the thing about people who are close. Would they actually fight, unless there's a really good reason. So understandable there. And, like I was saying, 4 fights last year. One of those fights was your Bellator debut, got to be a part of the cross promotion that they were doing all of last year. And so I'm just kind of curious, unfortunately you didn't get the win there, but you got your revenge, in the RIZIN ring. So when it comes to the ring versus a cage, I'm curious, would you say, there's a big difference between that? Because it's kind of a split opinion where some people say it doesn't matter, they prefer one or the other. How do you differentiate the ring and cage from your experiences?
そうですね。まあでも私は16からデビューして
Ever since I made my professional debut at 16, I've only been fighting in the ring. So obviously, I feel much more comfortable inside the ring. As I get more experience and practice, get better in utilizing the cage more. But when I first stepped in the cage, I definitely did not feel right. I didn't feel comfortable inside the cage. So if you ask me right now, I'm gonna have to say I've been for the last 13 years. I feel much more comfortable in the ring.
Yeah, totally understandable. Just was curious about, how they compared and whatnot. So yeah, definitely makes sense there. And you're a pretty big superstar in Japan. One of the biggest in your division, of course, and just as one of the female superstars in Japan in all of MMA. So I'm curious, do you feel any pressure being, a big star and a role model to people? Is that something that you feel or notice, or is it is what it is?
うーん、もうあんまりないんですけど、まあでも、やっぱり
I guess it is what it is, right?
あるなとは思うんですけど、でも
One of my
本当に
goals
昔から
when I
まあ
first
ショートボ
started
クシングを
shootboxing is
盛り
that
上
I
げたい
wanted
とか、
to
まあ女子格闘技を盛り上げたい
I wanted
っていう
shootboxing to
とこ
have
ろで、
more
私のちょっとまあ役立つ
notice.
のはテレビで
I
まあ
wanted
話
to
してもら
spread
う
the
っ
word
ていうところ
and
が
the
私の
existence
まあ
of
昔
the
の夢だっ
sport
たので、それが
shootboxing.
全て叶って、
One of my dreams
そうですね。今は
was to have my fight televised on
まあ
national
RIZIN
television.
のベルトが本当は一
So,
番欲しいんですけど、
I've been
今
working
は
hard
やってる
to
からに
to
は
fulfill my
MMA のベル
dream.
トを
And
い
if
つ
that
も
means that
取
I
りた
had
い
to
なって
be
いうふうには
the face of the sport or the face of women's combat sports, that's what I had to do. So at the moment, I'm very happy that I was able to accomplish my goals. But as long as I'm challenging MMA, I would want a title belt in MMA of some sort. So that's my next goal right now.
Yeah, of course. Always chasing the big trophy, right? So I know you have plenty of those already, but got to get that MMA one, of course. And, just looking back on your journey and everything, I'm curious, did you have any inspirations of your own who, like, people you looked up to getting into the sport, whether, it was shoot boxing or, MMA fighters, any combat sports athletes, or just any sports figures of all, or, anybody really, any inspirations that you kind of looked at and were inspired by along your way so far?
うーん、そうですね。まあ、
So when I started
もうなん
my career in the
本当に
sport,
手
I
元
didn't
にな
really
る人
have
というか、
anybody
まあ
to
目標
learn
にする
from.
人っていうのは
There
本当
was
に
no
そもそも
set
なく
example,
て、
so I
まあ
didn't
この
I
人の
didn't
ここ
really
がい
have
い、こ
anybody
こがいいな
any
っていう
fighter that I
ふう
looked
に
up to.
みんなのいいところ
So
とか、まあ、志とか、
what I could do is all I could
まあ
do
そ
is
こで共感する部
I
分を
could
まあ
take
そ
the
の
good parts from
そうですね、
several
教
people
えてもらうというか、
and combine it and make it my own style.
を
So I
うん
don't really, to answer your question, I don't really have a
そうで
specific
すね、
person that I
いいな
looked
と
up
思う
to
とこ
or
ろを
got
集め
inspired to by,
てもう
but
進んでい
I
く。
had to learn everything. There was
知
no
らない
path
人の
set,
道
so I had to
作り
make
な
my
が
own
ら
path.
進んでいくっていう
And during the
感じだった
process,
の
yes,
で、
there
まあ
were
でもその
people
中
who
には
definitely
谷地祐介
influenced my
さん
style
で
and
あった
influenced me as
り、
a
ア
fighter,
ンディ・サワーであっ
such
た
as
り、
Megumi
本
Fuji-san
当にたくさん
and
の
Andy Sauer.
レジェンド
Like
の選手
getting advice and tips
皆
from
さ
those
ん
type of
の一
legends
言であったり、
definitely
いろ
helped
んな
me
立
who
ち
I
居
am
振る舞いであ
today.
ったり、そういうところを勉強させていただいて、今の私があるっていう感じですかね。
Yeah, and very good choices, of course, and very interesting when you're in that kind of position where you have to be your own trailblazer, but obviously working out quite well. All right, Rena. Well, I will leave you with one last thing. Thank you so much, for joining me again. But I gotta know, what would you be doing if you never got into fighting? Is there something you think that another career path there might have been for you?
そうですね。まあご覧の通りワンちゃんが好きなので、まあ
So as you can
広い
see, I
範囲
do
が
love
ある
dogs.
ってまあ子
So
供を産ん
if
で、
I
そうです
I
ね。
didn't
多分より
take
多
the
いワ
path
ンちゃんと
of being a fighter,
過ごしてたんじゃない
I
か
would
なっていう、
probably
まあそれ
be
は
living
将
in a
来
big
実
house
現
with
し
a
たいなと
big
いうふう
yard
に思ってます。
with more dogs and some kids. So that's something that I still haven't given up on, and hopefully I'd like to make that come true. But if I hadn't been fighting, I would probably be doing that earlier.
Of course, one big happy family. One big happy family. Well, all right, that is all I have for you, Rena. Big arigato gozaimashita. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your dogs for joining me. Very entertaining, very distracting. They're great though. Love them. So thanks so much for all of you guys joining me. And best of luck at Rising 24. Cannot wait for it. Excited to see you back. And whatever the future holds for you. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございました。来週、精一杯。
I'll work hard on getting that win next week. So.
ありがとうございました。
Arigato.
はい、すみません。ありがとう。
Next, we have the lightweight king of pancrase, Takasuke Kume. Okay, thank you for joining me, Takasuke. It's so great to talk to you, man. Excited for the big fight coming up next week. So I got to know, man. It's almost been a full year layoff for you. It's the second longest layoff of your career, I believe. So I'm sure you're really excited to get back in there, right? Have you had to change up training much, and just how excited are you to get back in there?
Yeah, so it's been a while since my last fight. I believe it's been since last October. But my training camp is great. A lot of people support me. Thanks to their support, I'm having a great fight camp, and everything has been great. I feel great. Conditioning is great. So I'm just looking forward for a great performance, and I'm very excited to see what I can do.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, as for the quarantine, though, did it change your lifestyle much? Did you have to change anything during your living habits and all that during the time away from the sport?
So yeah, obviously, during the peak of the quarantine, I wasn't able to practice with other people. And, but I try to take everything in a positive way. So I use that time to focus more on myself, taking care of my body, observing myself, and just finding my weak points and making them better. So I tried to use this period as a very positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all did. It's a very unique experience, of course. but as for your last fight, it was in one championship, and you already have plenty of experience in pancrase and everywhere you've been fighting. But I'm just curious, how was the experience getting to be a part of such a big card, like one championship in the century? Their big, huge event that they had.
Yeah. I'm grateful that I was able to fight on such a great venue. It's a very prestigious venue, and more so, I was very grateful to be able to face such an opponent. The current Shiro world champion. So the venue was great, and the opponent was great, and I'm very grateful for that experience.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine it was definitely a unique thing to be a part of something like that. They really went all out for it. But yeah, of course, I'm curious. Do you think that experience, having fought for them, one of the other, biggest MMA promotions in the world, that experience will have helped you prepare for a stage like RIZIN, because, of course, another very large platform?
When I think about it, I don't really care about the size of the event. I'm more so focused on the fight itself and my opponent itself. Obviously, fighting in a bigger stage means more people are going to be watching me. The exposure is going to be bigger, so that's a good thing. But right now, my opponent is Kitaoka, and I'm just focused on trying to be myself, not trying to do something that I can't do because it's a big event, because it's a big venue. I just want to try to go in there and be myself and face my opponent.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, how is it really exciting for you also to be a part of such a great division with so much talent? I mean, we just got done with the the lightweight Grand Prix that they had at the end of the year last year. There's so many good fighters in the RIZIN lightweight division. Is that exciting for you to be a part of such a talent pool?
One of the main reasons why I chose to fight in RIZIN is because it's such a great division. It's such a stacked division. There's so many tough fighters in the division. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I chose to come here. And I want to put myself in tough competition. That's what I want. So this will be my first fight in RIZIN, but a win is a must, and I just want to continue to put myself in tough competition.
Yeah, for sure. It's that competitive spirit. Am I right? So, Ryzen 24, the event you're fighting on next week, it really showcases that lightweight division that we're talking about. But, 3 champions from different organizations, yourself from Pancrase, there's the Deep champion, Shuto. Is it extra motivation for you to try and stand out with an awesome performance when these other champions are also competing on the same night that you are?
そうですね。もう
My philosophy in fighting is I always try to go for the KO or submission. I always try to finish the fight. So if everything goes right and if I can put on a performance that with my full potential, the results will lead to me being the most memorable fighter, lightweight fighter of that night.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you always want to put on the best performance, but of course, when you're competing with guys like that, sure, it makes it a little bit more fun. But yeah, of course. And you're taking on Kitaoka, like we said earlier on. So just curious, what do you think of him? Obviously, he's been around for a very long time now. Finally getting to fight him here in the later stages of his career. But what do you think of the matchup here? And do you think it should have happened sooner, or is this perfect timing?
So
when you look back at Kitaoka's, what he's done in his career, like his accomplishments and how he carries himself, his professionalism, I've actually sparred with him in the past, and I know how good he is. So I've got nothing but respect for him. And in terms of fighting him, the timing wise is, the timing really doesn't matter because I'm fighting him, and now I'm fighting him, and that's a fact. So I really don't really care about focusing but he's been facing very, very tough competition lately, and he hasn't been able to get the win, but he's still a strong fighter and a very, very dangerous fighter that can finish a fight at any time. So the fact that I am being able to face Kitaoka, such a fighter, regardless of the timing, is something that greatly motivates me. And it's a very good motivation I have to face Kitaoka.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said right there, obviously a very notable name in the sport, but hasn't been getting the wins lately, but very tough competition. Just curious, where do you think that a win could put you in terms of, how close you could be to a potential, lightweight title shot against the champion, Tofik Musayev?
Good. So
I don't really have a plan on when to face Musayev, Tofik, but the thing is, I know for a fact that if I win this fight, I know that Ryzen's going to give me a tougher fight. And if I keep winning, Ryzen's going to continue to give me tougher and tougher fights, which will eventually lead me to Tofik. So, for me, that's what I want to do. I want to win, and I want Ryzen to give me a tougher opponent, and that's how I know that I'm continuing to get better as a fighter and stronger as a fighter. So, continuing to win and beating better and tougher opponents will eventually get me to that title.
Yeah, definitely. Can't go wrong with winning. Can't go wrong with winning. And, you've done a lot of that in your career, a 13-year career now. So I'm just curious, looking back on everything, just what would you say, if you can pinpoint something, what has been the biggest learning lesson for you out of all these years you've been fighting?
So yeah, if I had to list something, it would be my fight against Tokudome when I won the title. The reason is because I knew that I was facing a tough opponent going into the fight. So I worked hard. I did everything I could. Everything leading up to that fight made me a lot stronger, made me grow as a fighter. So I think that fight and the process of winning that fight, leading up to that fight, is something that was a very big learning process on my end.
And if you could go back in time, I'm curious, is there any specific advice that you might give yourself starting out in MMA?
Advice.
I would like to tell my old self that you better use your head while you fight.
Smartly.
You have to fight smart.
Of course, always a good thing. All right, Takasuke. I think that's all I got for you, man. So, thank you so much for joining me. Arigatou gozaimashita.
ありがとうございま
Looking
す。
forward to the big fight on next Saturday, Ryzen 24, of course, man. Good luck. Be watching and hope to speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And last but not least, it is Yusuke Yachi. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Yusuke. Very excited to get to talk to you, man. Looking forward to the fight this Sunday, of course, Ryzen 24. Before we get into the fighting stuff, man, I got to ask you, I saw recently on your Instagram, you were taking a stroll through a stream, a body of water of sorts. So I'm just curious, do you like to do a lot of exploring in your downtime away from fighting?
そうですね、はい。最近は、
So yeah, to answer your question, Drake, yeah, I have been into going out in the wild and surrounding myself in nature and resting my body in the wild. I've been starting to do that lately.
Yeah, of course. And is that something, obviously with the crazy pandemic world we've been in lately, is something you've tried to do more, or you've been doing that pretty much, even before things got crazy?
そうですね、人からまあちょっと聞いて、
I heard from a friend of mine saying that, when you try to rest at home, like you're lying down, resting your body, but you're always watching television or you're watching your cell phone, so you're not quite resting. So, this friend says that, human beings are animals too, and animals do belong in the wild. They belong to be surrounded in the nature, and that's where you can truly relax and rest your body. So I heard that recently, and I've been trying to work on that as much as I can.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that makes sense to me. A very good logic there. It's always just nice to get out in general. And of course, you also have a great YouTube channel. Very big on YouTube. So I'm just curious. What inspired you to make your YouTube videos?
なんでだろうな、なんだろう
I can't really specify what made me to start, but when I was thinking about my career as a professional fighter, and when you start thinking about your second career, I just wanted to start something on the side to get myself going because it's just so hard to,
選択したって感じですかね。
as a professional fighter, you never know what happens. So I just wanted something going on, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I started it. And I just chose to be a YouTuber.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a good side thing to, have, and always fun. I think it's fun to create videos too. So awesome to see that, when fighters get involved like yourself. And, if you were to give any piece of advice for somebody starting their channel, is there something you would say? Because, it is a little bit, it can be tougher than people realize,
アドバイスは、
So for me, my number one job is to be a fighter. So I think the concept behind it is that, I'm a fighter and I want to introduce what we go through on a regular basis. But most importantly, I try to have as much fun as I can. I don't stress myself over an obligation of I have to create content, I have to do this. So, the number one thing is to have fun. Try to have fun with your team, with your people, and don't get obsessed with it to a point where you're stressing out. So my advice would be, don't put all the eggs in one basket, and just do not stress over the obligation of being a YouTuber.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's good advice, for a lot more things than just YouTube or other things, of course, just good to have fun in general, right? So yeah, definitely awesome there. And, of course, like you said, your main thing is being a fighter. So, before you returned to action last month, your last fight was at the end of 2019 in Bellator, where you got that awesome win by sucker kick in the cage there. So I'm just curious, what was the experience for you like getting to go compete part of the RIZIN Bellator crossover, man?
なんか難しい質問だな。まあでも、ベラトール
So,
だっ
I fought, I did fight on a Bellator
た
card,
会場の
but it was the postlims, right? So, which was pretty much a RIZIN show. the audience, the venue, the setup, the officials, and even the rules were Ryzen rules. So I didn't really feel like I was fighting on a Bellator card. It was more like just fighting on a Ryzen event in the cage. So I don't really feel too much of fighting on a different organization.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that there. Because you guys did fight in your normal rule set too, of course, after the initial part of the Bellator event, of course. So yeah, totally makes sense there. And unfortunately for that last fight that you did have at Ryzen 22, Roberto de Souza, you got the loss there, unfortunately. But in a fight like that, do you have any big takeaways from it, or is it just kind of refocusing, regrouping, and then on to this next one that we got coming up here?
So my last fight, it didn't go my way, and it ended fairly quickly. And I wasn't able to showcase what I've been working on, which is one of the reasons why I lost. I'm in the process of absorbing a lot of new techniques and putting together a lot of techniques, and so I really want to show that in a fight, and that's my biggest desire of why I wanted to fight so quick. I wanted to showcase my skills. I want to show what I've been working on a lot. So, and another reason is that I don't cut too much anymore, so I don't damage my body with the weight cut. So I'm always healthy, and my body is always ready to fight, and that's one of the reasons why I want to continue to fight, and I can fight in such a short span.
Yeah, and as for this next one, facing Juri Ohara here at Ryzen 24, you guys both have a whole lot of experience in your careers. So, what exactly are you expecting from him, if anything, in this one? Do you think that his experience will come into play against yours? Just what do you think is going to happen in this matchup here with him?
I think Ohara is a very aggressive striker. He just continues to press forward. So, and I'm no stranger to the striking game as well. So I think he'll just come in and strike, do what he does. So, it'll be a fun fight. I don't think he will be using his experience as he should be, because he likes to strike and he's super aggressive.
Yeah, for sure. And we touched on, the pandemic a little bit with, the nature and stuff earlier on, but I'm curious, did you have to change up any of your training very much because of that? Like whether it was with your gym and all that, did it impact your training at all, the pandemic?
So from through March to June, I wasn't able to practice at all. But once the government lifted the quarantine, I either had to choose take the risk and start training, take the risk on getting the COVID, or just stay inside and avoid it completely. But me, I needed to train, so I decided to take the risk and train full time. So ever since that, I've been doing what I used to do.
All right. Well, that's nice. I mean, doesn't sound too major, of course. Got to make things work however you can. And I also asked Takasuke Kume this question. He's fighting, of course, on the same card as you, and I bring it up because Ryzen 24, a little bit, of a lightweight showcase in a way where there's multiple champs from other organizations competing. Notable names like yourself and Satoru Kitaoka as well. Does it motivate you at all to go and have an even better performance when you know that your potential competitors are fighting on the same night as you?
Of course, I want to stand out more than these guys. I want to prove that I'm the best lightweight in Japan. Although I don't have a title under my wing right now, but I do have the integrity because I've been fighting in Ryzen the longest. And I want to prove that I'm better than these guys. And these champions stepping up to Ryzen is a very good thing. There's more competition, and eventually I'll be facing these guys. So I want to prove a point that I am the best Japanese lightweight. So I'm ready to fight these guys and prove myself that I'm better than them.
Yeah, and you said it right there that you've been, fighting in Ryzen for quite a long time now. And I think historically, it's safe to say that you've been one of the most exciting fighters, really, not just in your division, but, all of Ryzen. So I'm curious, do you generally plan on going out there and having these crazy fights, back and forth wars, or is that just kind of how things end up playing out most of the time?
いや、そうね、まさに、そこが僕の
So you
ダメなとこ
absolutely
ろでは
nailed
あると思うんですけ
my
ど、
bad part.
全然作戦ではなくて、
Meaning,
もちろん
I
作戦
always
っていう
have
の
a
もね、
plan,
試合前にし
and
っ
my
かりと
team,
練
me
るん
and
で
my
すけ
team
ど、
always come up with a
やっぱり
nice
そこ
plan for
の
each
試
fight.
合中
But
だったり、
you
会
know,
場の
for
雰囲気
some
と
reason
か、
during the
そう
fight,
いう
I
もの
get too
でちょっ
excited.
と、
Maybe it's the crowd, maybe it's the
なんていうかな、
atmosphere.
アグレッシブに
But
走ってしまうってい
you
う
know,
ことは結
a lot of the
構
times I
あ
can't
ります
stick with my
ね。
game plan, and that's part of the reason why things go good or sometimes things go bad. So yeah, I do have a game plan, but I don't think I'm able to stick with it all the time.
Well, totally understandable. That atmosphere will get you. And, now that you mentioned that, uh, do you think that, obviously you're going to have a smaller crowd for this fight, and you did for your last fight as well because of, the quarantine rules and whatnot. Did it feel a little bit different or noticeable, the atmosphere with less people in it? Did that affect you this last time out? And did you notice it, I guess, the size difference in the crowd?
やっぱパッと見でね、だいぶ少ないんで、
So when you walk into that
しょう
venue,
がないことなんですけ
like
ど、
obviously
少
there's
ないなって、
not as
やっぱ
many
りちょっ
people as
と
I'm used
気
to
持ちは
seeing.
ね、
So
下がってし
you
まいま
get
すけ
bummed out a
ど、
little bit,
で
right?
もやっぱり
You're a little
そんな大
disappointed,
変な
but
中なんで、しょうがないこと
you
ですけ
have
ど、
to
で
understand
も
the situation. Everybody's
見に
going
来て
through a
くれ
hard
る
time,
方たち
and
のため
then
に、
and you have to understand that
し
these are
っ
the
かりとした
people
面白い試合見せようってい
who
う
are
ことで、
willing to pay their money to come to the
日程
event
下
to
がるけ
watch
ど、
us fight.
試合
Right?
に
These are
な
the
った時
people
は
that
ちゃんと
chose
テンション上げ
to
て、
take the risk and come and
今
watch
回
us
臨
fight.
んでますね。
So, you got to be very grateful, and I have to put my mindset to where I have to show these guys a good performance. So when you walk in the venue, you're bummed a little bit, but then you have to work with it. You have to make yourself able to fight in order to put on a good performance.
Yeah, definitely a very unique and different dynamic, of course, with how that's all working out in these crazy times. But mention it right there. Plenty of good performances in your career. Very exciting, like I said. So I'm just curious, do you have any favorite fight of yours or moment that stands out throughout your great career?
は、もう何年前か忘
So
れ
I
ま
have
し
to
たけ
list
ど、
two
PXC でベルト取った時っていうのはす
fights
ごい
that stand out
今でも
very clearly.
なんか
Forgot how many years
鮮明に
ago it
覚えて
was,
ると
but
い
the
うか、
first one, the
僕の
best memory I
ところ
have
とは
is
違う
winning the
日本
PXC
の団
belt.
体じゃない団体で
It's because,
ベルト取ることが
I
で
was
きたっていう
able
の
to
はすごい
accomplish
思
something
い出深いんで
outside of
す
the
ね。
country
それ
in
と
a foreign
同
organization.
同じというか、
So
逆
I
に
do remember
悪
that
い方
very
の思
clearly
い出
as a
深い
very
の
good
は、
memory
そ
of
の
winning
PXC
that
のベル
belt.
トを
And I
ボ
still
ルダー
remember
式に
this memory,
怒られて取られ
which
た
is
の
a very
も、まあ
bad
悪い
one,
思い出です
which
け
is
ど、
also
思い
at
出の話で
PXC
すね。
of being beat up by Volkanovski and losing that belt. So both memories I remember very clear, good and bad. But yeah, both of those fights happened in PXC.
Oh, I mean, obviously that's not a bad guy to lose to. He's gone on to have great success. Just, mentioning him, what do you think about that? That's got to be, I mean, when you see somebody go on and become a champion that you fought and you're like, all right, does that give you motivation? Like, yeah, I can go and do great things too when your opponent, when you guys were coming up like at the same time and you see that, does that fuel you a little bit too?
そうですね。やっぱり彼がね、勝ち続
So
け
every
て
time I
しか
watch
も
his
日
fights,
本でも
it's
チャンピオンになったりとか、
definitely
そういう
an
姿を見
it's
る
a
と、
confident. It boosts my confidence,
自
of
分の
course.
自信になるという
Maybe
か、
I'm thinking I
こ
don't
の
really
試合も
remember
まあ
that
ちょっ
fight
と
too
よ
much,
く
or
よ
maybe
く
I just kind of
展
tweaked my
開しちゃって
mind
るのかもしれ
memory
ないん
because I
です
do
けど、
think that I was
2ラウ
winning
ン
the
ドはまあ
first
ま
two
あ
rounds when I fought
僕の
him.
優勢で進んでた気がしてた
So
んで、
every time
あ、
I
あの
watch him
選手は
fight,
もちろんね、それが
it
何年も前ですか
definitely
ら、
gives me
今知らないで
confidence
すけ
that I
ど、
was able
あ、あ
to
んな
put
強い
on a
選
good
手
fight
と渡り合える男がいて、
with such a
ま
great
あ、
fighter. So watching him,
強さ
watching
に
his
自信持ってい
success
いなっ
and
ていう、
ultimately become the UFC
そういうふう
champion,
に
it
こう、
definitely
日々
helps me
彼
out.
の試合を見ると思うかな。
Yeah, very cool. And for sure makes sense. When you get to see your peers go and do crazy things like that, good booster for sure. All right, Yusuke, I got two last questions for you, kind of fun ones, outside of the MMA world and fighting stuff. So I'm curious, would you say that you have any hidden skills that maybe the fans might not know about? I saw one of your YouTube videos where you were cooking up a barbecue. You got some chef skills or any hidden talents that we don't know about?
特技なんだろうな。
So this is totally random, right? This is absolutely random. But I can identify people's voices. Like let's say if some celebrity, someone I know, right? Someone I've heard before, if some celebrity is doing narration of a voiceover, I can identify that person. So I have a great ear and I have the ability of identifying voices without the face. That's totally random, but I'm very confident in doing that.
All right. I mean, that's something. That's definitely a good skill. I think that's a cool skill. Right on. That's awesome. All right, Yusuke. And the last thing I got to ask you, man, what is the secret to great hair?
So the key is you have to treat your hair every day, and you have to watch what you eat. You have to eat good protein, and that gives you beautiful hair.
Awesome. Good tips to know. I will take that into advice. You know, I'm working on mine a little bit here as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Yusuke. Awesome, man. Look forward to the fight, of course. Always look forward to your fights. You know, we'll be wishing you luck and all that. And big arigato gozaimashita for joining me here, man. So, you know, best of luck.
こちらこそありがとうございました。頑張ります。
So yeah, my take on the shoes part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always been a debate on the shoes.
Yeah.
You know, kicking with shoes. Most of the fighters say that yeah, of course there's an advantage being TP'd in the gut with wrestling.
Doesn't feel great, yeah.
with shoes. But it's just one of those things that were left in the rules when RIZIN first started, right? Because when RIZIN first started, we just wanted to go on full-on pride rules.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there are some opinions where we should make it more extreme and allow headbutts.
Okay, of course.
Opinions like, well, you know what? Let's just make it the most extreme rule set in the world. Why not? So there were actually at one point, headbutts were allowed in the rules before it got crossed out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, pride rules didn't allow elbows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of, you know, the blood and lacerations that it may cause. And especially with, you know, terrestrial television, it's supposed to be on TV while, you know, families sitting down and having dinner. We can't have, you know, blood gushing out of people's faces. Fine. So those are one of the things that were discussed when RIZIN was first brought up and, you know, all the rules and stuff were made. But in terms of elbows, you know, unified MMA rules, the sport of MMA has changed drastically in the past 10 years, ever since Pride was gone. Mm-hmm. And elbows to the face has been something that, you know, most fighters practice on a regular basis. All right. So elbows was one of the things that was also discussed. Should we allow them or should we not? And so it all came down to like a compromise was, well, let's allow elbows if both fighters want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's like it's a for sure televised fight.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't want, you know, big cuts showing on terrestrial television while people food. You know?
It's funny that
which is
the thing I was going to say. The thing about the new shoe rule to me is like I don't think it's that big of a deal because people aren't really wearing shoes too much these days. And I mean, the only weird thing was like, well, why can't you do knees? That was the only thing that you know came to mind for me.
Here's the reasoning behind knees.
Mm.
So when you ban something, right? There's always people who try to find a way out.
Mm-hmm.
Sneak their way. So what if a fighter throws a knee during a clinch and they accidentally kick, their foot accidentally lands somewhere and causes damage? And the fighter's always going to say, oh, no, I meant to throw a knee. I'm sorry. I meant to throw a knee.
Yeah.
You know? So it's to avoid all that crap, you know. So basically, if you're going to wear shoes, just don't kick. That's where it came down to. Because there's always going to be situations like that. If we ban kicks, people are going to try to throw knees and accidentally, you know, kick someone in the face or So it's just to avoid all that crap. The officials like, you know what? Can we just ban all knee strikes, like anything, all strikes with your feet?
Yeah, just makes it easier that way. So.
I mean, but bottom line, it's just like, just don't wear shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we get all this, well, if you're not going to allow them to kick, why not ban shoes completely? And I kind of agree with that. Like if you're going to make a half-ass,
yeah,
rule change, just why not ban it?
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, though, like once you ban wrestling shoes, it's hard to kind of go after the athletes.
How do you mean?
Olympic wrestling, Olympians.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
You feel more comfortable because they can't kick anyways, right?
Yeah.
If we're gonna scout like an amateur elite wrestler, they're gonna want to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta tell them, well, if you wear shoes, you can't kick. They're like, oh, that's fine. I'm not gonna kick. So it's just one of those things that leaves the negotiations a little more easier. It's I don't know.
It's funny.
There's a lot of thought and debate that goes behind it. These kind of things before it comes out. So when it goes out, people think that, oh, that's stupid.
Yeah.
It does sound stupid.
I think everything's stupid.
But it's not like we just woke up and said, oh, let's ban knees.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that go behind these kind of decisions, and there's a lot of people involved and a lot of opinions, and it's all about compromising. And
yeah, I hear you. It's funny to me though, because I saw people complaining too, like on your tweet when you put that out and everything. I was like, then they just don't have to wear shoes. And I was thinking, like, I think the last person I could remember actually wearing shoes was, like, it's funny enough, Rocky Martinez, who's
Mm-hmm.
fighting tomorrow, and he doesn't even wrestle that much. But I remember him wearing shoes one time, so I was like, just kind of funny.
Makoto Takahashi wore it on Bellator in the cage. He wore shoes against Yusuke Nakamura. Oh, but you probably wouldn't.
Yeah, that must have been on the main card.
Yeah.
That was a bummer. It's like, people didn't get to see Yachi's soccer kick. So yeah, I mean, like in regards to Rena, and I mean not her specifically, but when it comes to divisions, and I mean, you guys don't have necessarily a strawweight division in comparison to like super atom weight, and making titles, and like even for Kana Watanabe, a flyweight title and that kind of thing. Is that something that, I don't know, what do you think about when it comes to more divisions like that? I mean, I guess for the females specifically.
Well, it's a tough one, because especially like times like this, with the world pandemic, we can't get international fighters into Japan.
Yeah.
Like, there aren't too many high-level Japanese women in MMA. Like, we have really high competition. Like, we have really high-level fighters.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the middle, right? So it's really hard to create a division because, well, without international fighters, because the level is just so far apart. Like, if we wait probably 2 or 3 more years, we'll have some good up-and-comers, female athletes that would be able to fight at that caliber.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we don't have that. And, obviously, strawweight, we used to have Kanako Murata, but she had absolutely no competition in Japan.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to find tough strawweights outside of Invicta. It's very hard to find tough strawweights to bring international fighters to fight Kanako. It'll all be one-offs, right? So the division won't grow. So that's why we chose to send her out to the States and Invicta, and now she's in the UFC. So I think strawweight's going to be tough to build, unless we have like Rena. If Rena decides to stick with strawweight, I mean, we'll probably be forced to make a division around her.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing goes with flyweight. I mean, I can't really think of any competitive flyweight female Japanese fighter that will be able to give Kana Watanabe.
There's one.
Rena Kai, right?
Yeah.
I think those are 3. Rena Kai, and Kana Watanabe, and then Shizuka Sugiyama. These three are
Yes.
probably the highest level at Japanese flyweight division.
Mm-hmm.
But
And then Kana already beat Sugiyama twice, right? So
right.
yeah.
So yeah, obviously we all know that Rin Nakai versus Kana Watanabe is the fight to make, but obviously there are some reasons. I'm sure it will happen, right? I'm sure it will happen, but there's just so many. It's such a small island. It's such a small business industry. There's so many people in between get involved,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just hard to. It's not as simple as people may think it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that fight will happen eventually, but we've been trying for a long, long time, but we're not quite there yet.
When's the last time Rin even fought? I can't even think of when it was. It wasn't for Ryzen, her last fight.
It was for Pancrase.
Yeah.
She fought Pancrase. Oh no, she fought for Deep. She was a filler for King Reyna.
Reyna, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, King Reyna missed weight, and then Rin Nakai stepped in. I was like, how the hell did that happen? Yeah. It's hard enough to get her to fight in Ryzen.
On short notice.
Yeah, on short notice. I mean, holy crap, how did that happen?
That's funny. Yeah, like this doesn't add up.
Yeah. So, it's so in terms of answering your question in terms of division, it's hard. But I think flyweight, if we have those three and bring in like three more competitive flyweight, international fighters, I think that's something that we can focus on. Super atomweight, obviously we have the best division in the world, right?
Yep.
So I'm not quite sure how Shannon will take this, but Alicia Zapatella, she just won her title. Getting her in the mix, back in the mix, would be something very interesting. I mean, Alicia's a fantastic athlete. I don't think she'll be able to fight strawweight in the UFC. I mean, she probably will be, but she's just way too small, right?
Yeah.
So, probably Alicia's going to have to stick with atomweight, which the UFC doesn't have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like if they were gonna pull the trigger on that, they should have done it by now. They probably should have done it when Jin was champion, honestly. But
yeah, true.
But maybe just they're not too interested. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Jin had a hard time, fighting at strawweight, right?
Oh yeah, Jin. Yeah.
He just lost. Hamasaki has never won at strawweight.
She has wins at strawweight.
She does?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty half and half with her career. She lost to Claudia and
yes, her losses have come from strawweight.
Yes. Except for the Ham one, obviously. So yeah, because going into the trilogy fight, they were both undefeated at atomweight. That was kind of the thing I was focusing on. So it was like 10-0 each or whatever at atomweight, or below 115 was Hamasaki's, like undefeated below 115, obviously. And then kind of similar with her not as good at strawweight because outsized. She did get robbed though a couple of those UFC fights. So Hyam did. So
yeah, she should have done better.
Yeah, lack of options will get you.
Like definitely, this whole quarantine forced us to recognize the reality of the lack of competition in the Japanese women's fight scene. Yeah. Hamasaki doesn't have an opponent. Like no one can fight her, except for probably Kana. And I don't even
already beat.
Right. I don't even have an opponent for Kana. Right? I is probably the only one, but she's injured right now. But there's only a handful of top level female athletes in Japan.
Yeah, and Miyu's fought most of them too at this point. Also.
Yes, the only one that we haven't done is Miyu versus Hamasaki, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, because she fought Rena in her second fight. I was looking at that the other day. Yeah.
I think a rematch against Rena and Miyu would be interesting too.
Yeah, at this point, because Miyu's settled in a lot more into MMA now. So yeah, that would be a very good one. And then, a Zapatella kind of rematch might even be interesting.
Sure.
Just Zapatella versus, most of them, since that's a fresh thing. But yeah, I guess we'll see about that, obviously. Maybe not too soon for it because of all the travel stuff, but an interesting idea.
Hopefully the borders open up by New Year's Eve. This is just driving everybody crazy.
Yeah, I see. What's his name? I'm blanking on him. Jake Yoon. He wants to fight so bad.
I feel bad for him. So bad for him.
I thought he was not living in Japan, but like Australia or somewhere close to there for some reason. But
Yeah, he's in Australia.
Oh, okay.
But I think he said that he's moving back to the States.
Okay.
So he's looking for a fight in the States.
Yeah. All right, so let's look at the community questions here. Let's start with Blaine Henry, who, shout out to Blaine, of course, a fellow writer at mymmanews.com. He asks, and maybe I'll give more of the answer on this one, but he asked, do you think the tension fight at Rizin 24, of course, is meaningful or just another fight for him to win? Well, first of all, Blaine, I think that every fight, is meaningful. Let's be real. But this one, yeah, obviously Koji's a very capable opponent. But the thing is that I think tension has reached kind of that realm of like, man, it's just impossible to pick against him until he finally loses, So I get why people would think that at this point. But that's a meaningful fight, of course, and should be fun while it lasts. But it's hard to pick against tension at this stage, right? So. So yeah, that is that one. And then good buddy Tom Taylor, of course, he asks, how do we get a tension versus Rodtang rematch? What has to happen? Well, first of all, obviously borders need to open, and then Rodtang is in one. So what do you think about that possibility?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, Rizin's open to be working with anybody, and Sakakibara-san's been saying that from the beginning. He's always saying that. He's continuing to say that. So, they're just, I don't know. It's not up to us at this point, right?
Yeah, and that is just out of curiosity. Have you guys like ever tried to do stuff with one or vice versa? I mean, I'm assuming maybe not on their side since you guys obviously have cooperated with Bellator and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, how should I put this? I'm not quite sure if I should say this. I mean, let's keep it this. I mean, like I said, we're always open to be working with anybody.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So yeah, we will leave it at that because plain and simple. So all right, thank you guys for asking those questions. And well, I guess we did have another one actually. So I'll just gloss over that real quick. Fern Dog on Twitter, shout out to him. He asks, will Rizin be coming back to to Fight TV doing live shows? Not for this one, and that's just kind of up in the air for the future, right? So
yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Fight TV has been very easy to work with in the past, and they do have, it's just like image and branding, right? Like all international fighters, they used to be, okay, Rizin, Fight TV. You go back and find the previous fights, find the archive and everything. So it was simple. It's very simple and easy. So we don't really want to ruin that, but we'll just see what happens. Like times change, society changes, and we just gotta try out new things in order to survive and keep up with the crazy world what's going on right now. So
yep, it's constant evolution, right? So just how it goes. But yeah, I guess we will wrap up on that. You guys, thanks so much for tuning in once again to Broadened Horizon episode 2, the sequel, right? I hope you enjoyed all the great chats we had. I think it was a very good episode, very fun conversations with everybody. And of course, hope you enjoy Rizin 24 on Sunday, right? September 27th. And then, we'll be back sometime after that. We're not setting any dates for this show, but thank you so much for tuning in, you guys, and we will catch you next time. Thank you.